Ronaldo Bryant.
Jason Ronaldo Bryant.
August 31st, 2019.
Today is Monday, May 11th, 2020.
Correctional Training Facility in Soledad, cell number 306 in F-Wing on Central Yard.
I live in Elk Grove, California.
Wow, days. I know it's over 7,000, so it's like 7,300 something.
I've been out of prison for 44 days.
April 20th, 2000.
Yesterday on El Dorado Trail.
January 1st of this year, a law passed called Senate Bill 1437, which stated that an offender who did not commit an actual murder should not be charged with murder. We were engaged in robberies. On my commitment offense, our victim was killed by my co-defendants. The law stated that whether you were the actual killer or not, if you were involved in the felony, then you were guilty of murder, and that's what I was convicted under.
July 27th of 2019, I was recommended by the Secretary of CDCR for 1170D, which is a penal code that states that if an incarcerated person has demonstrated exceptional behavior while incarcerated, then the Secretary has the right, the authority to recommend that a sentencing court resentence and vacate that incarcerated person's time, and I was awarded that recommendation based on my conduct in prison.
Either a fan blowing or COs racking the bar, which means taking a metal clanger and clanging the bar to alert inmates that it's time for work.
The first thing I hear is like it's a bouncing sound. Imagine a kid bouncing in a crib going, ah, 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 ah.
The last thing I see is either the prison lights coming through the window or my television, which is I usually put on a sleeper timer, so I'll nod off to that.
The last thing I hear is my wife say, "I love you, good night."
On a payphone on the Central Yard.
I'm in my bedroom that I share with my wife.
She's getting further along in her pregnancy, which makes her a little bit less easy to keep comfortable. See, this is her pregnancy pillow, so...
I know that there is a very good possibility that something favorable will happen on the 9th. I expect that the judge is gonna rule. The judge is going to decide if I do in fact qualify for relief under Senate Bill 1437. I hope that he finds in my favor.
On September 9th, 2019, the judge denied my petition. He found that the law was actually unconstitutional. Moreover, he believed that I was a major participant in the crime.
It's challenging because a lot of people want to encourage me and, I guess, for lack of a better term, infuse me with hope. Like, oh man, it's going to happen, you're going home. It's still very surreal. It's very surreal, the possibility that I could be going home soon.
I think initially I felt, disappointment, a little bit shocked, I think. And I think that the shock came from, like, in my heart, I believed that I qualified, and I had that sentiment kind of reinforced by a lot of my loved ones and friends who felt that I would be getting relief.
Subjectively, like for me, the worst thing about being in prison right now is not being the resource that I could be for my family, for my son, for my wife, for my mother. That's the worst. Objectively speaking, though, like in 20 years of experience here, the worst thing about prison is that the culture that prisoners have created is an incredibly alluring temptation for individuals to choose despair, to believe that they are not capable of doing things. And it takes really an extraordinary effort to break through that culture and discover discover that, there are a lot of resources available to you to become the person that you want to be.
The worst thing about being in prison for me is a sense of helplessness when it comes to being able to care for the people I love. I'm literally unable to help my wife around the house. I am literally unable to. One of the most paralyzing experiences for me was something so simple as hearing my son cry over the phone and not being able to pick him up and hold him. So an overwhelming sense of powerlessness to me, to be there for the people who I care about. That's the hardest part of prison. There are aspects of the culture that are challenging, for sure. It's a daily challenge to keep a positive perspective when you're surrounded by a context of negativity, and largely that's true. That's largely true in prison. That's a challenge. It's a challenge to wake up and say, well, I'm going to do something positive with my day.
My wife is a very realistic woman. She came back into my life 8 years ago. We got married 5 years ago, and she chose to be with me, support me, and be on our side nonetheless. So she's hopeful. At the same time, she protects herself from, extreme pain by appreciating the reality that until it happens, I'm still in prison.
She did think like that. She doesn't think like that anymore. Excited about the future. Now she's more like, I can't wait for what's next. Until very recently, people who were sentenced to life terms in prison were not eligible for family visits. When she married me, I still had another 10 years at least to do in prison before they would think about paroling me. The only thing we had was the periodic regular visit, coming into a space, a visiting room, and sharing it with 200 to 300 other people, sitting at a picnic table, always under the supervision of multiple cameras, always watching you, always monitoring behavior.
My son being born, the biggest thing that's happened in my life.
I was released from prison on April 2nd. I mean, the answer would be the birth of Jackson, but that's over a year. And Tristan isn't here yet. The fact that both of my sons were conceived while I was incarcerated in a 46-hour window once every 3 months. So that's like a miracle in itself.
8 months. 8 months old.
My son was born on January 11th, 2019. So he is 15 months and some change.
Last weekend, August 25th.
This morning when I dropped him off at daycare, he didn't want to let me go.
Dad, I love you. No. A year from now, what would I tell my son? I'm so grateful for today and all the days to come that I get to be in your life.
He'll be 2. Be a good brother.
I want to take him to the beach, for sure, a year from now. I want to expose him to new environments at an early age.
It would be like potty training because I'm tired of changing diapers. But I don't know. I don't even know if that's right in the timeline.
My son, he's the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, without a doubt. As far as literally objective accomplishments, I would probably have to say my master's thesis for my master's degree in philosophy. It was the most exhaustive piece of work I've ever done, and I was very proud of myself for seeing it all the way through with such a scarce amount of resources available to me.
When I look at, my degrees or, senatorial recognition, my certifications, when I look at having my sentence commuted by the governor of California, I mean, it's an incredible document. But none of that comes even close to my boys.
Yes, I do. I have several.
I feel done with school, but I do have this far off dream, I guess. I don't know. Fantasy, perhaps. I dare say a vision of retiring in my 60s, going back to school and receiving my PhD, writing some type of dissertation about all these years of work that not only that I've done in prison, but that I will continue to do for the next 20 years at least.
Porter, wing aide, housing clerk. All three, but I would say wing aide is the official title.
I am the Director of Restorative Programs for the CROP organization. The CROP organization, it stands for Creating Restorative Opportunities and Programs. It's a nonprofit with the mission of transforming the culture of prison and helping to redefine the purpose of prison in America.
How people relate to each other. When I came to prison, I had a Nokia cell phone that the coolest feature on it was the fact that you could take off the front of it and could change the way it looked. Social media and a lot of the technology that is available today just wasn't around back then in 1999. So I have heard and I suspect that the way people relate to one another is very different. So I'm curious to see how I'm going to adjust. I mean, I'm used to being in conversation with people, looking them in the eyes, and I'm very curious if I'm going to seem strange, like I don't fit in with the way things are in contemporary society today.
How good of a driver I am? I know that might sound stupid, but it's true. I mean, just being a passenger in the car when we do go places, I wonder, like, am I going to be a good driver? Because my experience is that so many people aren't. My wife included.
We have no internet here.
I'm not sure. I know that yesterday I got a notification on my phone saying my screen time was down. It was like at 2.5 hours. So I don't know if that's a good number or not, but I guess we could round it up to 3. 3 times 7, 21 hours a week. And, I mean, the most amazing thing to me is Google. I know that might sound weird, but the fact that I can just type in any question I have or speak it in rather, and it's right there, that's amazing to me. Like, literally it seems like pretty close to the depth and breadth of human knowledge is available in a search engine.
I'll go back to my housing unit and I will shower. I will check in with my supervisor, see if there's anything that needs to be done in the wings. Sporadic conversations with a small group of friends that I keep, and I'll have dinner, and then I'll go to bed.
What time is it? Oh, it's 4:16. I'm gonna go get my son with my wife and put on Motel Magic. It's the first thing he does when he wakes up, and it's the last thing he does when he goes to sleep. So go get my boy and enjoy the rest of my evening with him and my wife.